Today we will cover injuries of the leg, injuries of the both bone, which is tibia and fibula, which form the leg. You see, if this is the torso and these are the thighs and these are the legs, and if a car bumper of a car hits like this, then there will be a valgus strain on this limb. This will go into this position and this will go into this position. So this is called as the bumper injury sustained by people who are crossing the road and are hit by the car is called as wind swept injury. So this is the mechanism of injury of fractures of both bone of legs. You can see that the medial collateral ligament of the knee on the right side will be fractured, and there will be an impact fracture of the tibia or the femoral condyle on the lateral side of the right knee. And similarly, there will be an impact fracture on the medial side of the left leg and a distraction injury on the lateral side. So this type of injury combinations are called as wind swept injury, when a pedestrian who's crossing a road is hit by a car from the lateral side. So this is about the mechanism of injury. And of course, you have to remember that the anatomy a little bit. The tibia is a triangular bone. The posterior surface has another border here. Similarly, fibula is also a triangular bone. Again, the posterior surface has a border. The both are connected by an interosseous septum, and these posterior borders are also connected, so that the posterior compartment is divided into a superficial part and a deep part. And the anterior compartment, there is an anterior compartment and there is a lateral compartment which contains some muscles. So in the anterior compartment, you have the Himalayas are not dry places. That means tibialis anterior, extensor hallucis longus, the anterior tibial artery and the anterior tibial nerve, the extensor digitorum longus and peroneus tertius. In the lateral compartment, you have two muscles, the peroneus brevis and peroneus longus. Now, in the superficial part of the posterior compartment, you have a muscle which has got a medial head, a lateral head, and these medial and lateral head belong to the muscle which is called as gastrocnemius, and this gastrocnemius comes actually from the femur, therefore it can flex the knee and plantar flex the ankle, both, it can do both. But then there is a soleus, and the soleus is arising from the leg and inserted onto the ankle, therefore it doesn't move the knee, and the knee position doesn't make a difference on the soleus, and it produces only plantar flexion. So this produces plantar flexion plus knee flexion, and this produces only plantar flexion. Under this is the tibialis posterior. On the tibial side of the remaining posterior surface of the tibia is the flexor digitorum longus, and on the fibular side is the flexor hallucis longus. Now as they pass behind the medial malleolus, both of them, the flexor hallucis longus and digitorum longus cross over, so that the digitorum goes laterally to the toes and the hallucis longus goes medially to the great toe. Now the point at which they cross is called as the knot of Henry. So this is about the anatomy, but the important thing about the anatomy is that the medial surface of the tibia has no muscular attachments, and if you see the tibia like this, and this is the cortex of one side and this is the cortex of the other side, the canal through which the vessel enters, the nutrient artery enters, is a long canal, and this canal is called as the Volkmann's canal. And in fractures, the artery can be easily damaged. Therefore, no muscles on the tibia, so there can be no muscular blood supply to the cortex, and the blood vessel, the nutrient artery, can be easily damaged. Therefore, there is ischemia which affects the fractures of the tibia, and this produces slow union, delayed union, and non-union. Another complication is that whenever there is a fracture in the tibia and the fibula, there is a lot of blood collection and fluid collection in these compartments, facial compartments. This is the deep fascia, these are the bones, this is the interosseous membrane, so this is the anterior compartment. And as the pressure rises here, it can press on the blood vessels that are passing through this compartment and produce ischemia and ischemic necrosis of the muscle and consequent contractures. So this another important component of both bone leg fractures is that they are compartmental fractures. There is a compartmental syndrome which is associated with it. Therefore, the intra-compartmental pressure should be monitored and the swelling should be decreased. But if you want to decompress the compartment, either you do a fasciotomy or you take out the fibula, and you would find that anterior, lateral, deep posterior and superficial posterior, all four compartments are decompressed by removing the fibula. So fibulectomy is the treatment of compartmental syndrome. So one thing about this is this, and the third thing is that since the bone is just subcutaneous, it can easily cause compound fractures, and most of these fractures are inside out. That means the fractured bone ruptures the skin. So it is from inside out, and of course you have to remember the Gustello-Anderson grades of these compound fractures. 1 is less than 1 centimeter, 2 is more than 1 centimeter, 3 is extensive soft tissue injury, and 4 is vascular insufficiency. So these are Gustello-Anderson grades, and as far as fracture both bone leg is concerned, you have to remember this. Now, the management of these fractures. The first thing is that they are compound, usually open, and therefore you have to wash them to take off the contaminants, because for the first 6 hours there is contamination, not infections. If you wash them early, the contaminants are off. Then you have to reposit the skin flaps, because skin is the best dressing. You have to stop bleeding, give an early antibiotic, splint them, dress them with an antiseptic, and you have to put them nil orally, because you know that they would need to be prepared for anesthesia, and because surgery may have to be done for the compound fracture. So then you follow all the stages of you X-ray, determine the site and the geometry of the fracture, and then in the management you cover the wound, you prepare surrounding skin, and all this is being done under general anesthesia. Then you wash the wound, trim the skin edges, enlarge the wound, explore it to find out exactly what is damaged and give that thing primary treatment. For example, if the artery is damaged, try to repair it. If the nerve is damaged, at least tag it so that you can repair it later. And if the muscle is damaged or dead, then you excise that muscle till it bleeds. So you do this, then you manage the fracture. That means you reduce and you retain, and you manage the dead space by draining it, ensuring that it drains. Then you manage hemostasis. You try to ensure that there is no collection of blood inside it. And finally you manage the skin cover. If the wound is within 6 hours, then you close the wound without tension. You may have to give release incisions. You may have to give, if this is the wound, you may have to give a release incision here, shift this flap and close the wound. Because you don't want the surface of the tibia, which will not have granulation, grow over it exposed. So you have to arrange for the skin cover, for which you may have to give release incisions to suture the wound without tension. You may have to give release incisions. You may have to do a full thickness skin graft. So you cover and close. But in wounds where there is obvious infection or which are more than 6 hours old, or where you find that there will be a lot of collection, in those wounds you leave them open and close the whole thing in a plaster. So if you close in the plaster, the wound would heal and the fracture would heal, both would heal. The other alternative is external fixator. Then you have to know how to manage non-union, because what happens is that a portion of the bone may be lost and there may be gap non-union. So in non-union you explore the fracture, You remove the interposed tissue. You remove this interposed tissue. You freshen the bone ends. So you freshen the bone ends. You try to arrange for approximation. And the approximation is arranged by what is called as Ilizarov. So you fix this fragment by Ilizarov rings, 2 Ilizarov rings. You do a corticotomy here and you distract these rings so that there is lengthening of that fragment, and then it docks with, same way you can do with this, 1 ring here, 1 ring here, corticotomy here, and if you distract these rings, then there will be gain in length, and then this fragment will dock with that fragment. As the gap increases by the distraction, this keeps on healing by what is called as distraction osteogenesis. So this is the method of treating gap non-union by Ilizarov technique. The other thing is that you can put a graft in the gap. This graft can be without vascularity from the fibula or from other diaphysis, or this fibula which is intact on this side along with its muscular attachment may be transposed into the gap, and since it has muscular attachments and a blood supply, this particular fibula is called as vascularized pedicle graft. For slow union, what has been tried is electrical stimulation. You see, for osteoblasts to get active, you need electric currents. How are electric currents produced? By movement. There is deformation of the calcium hydroxyapatite crystal. Calcium hydroxyapatite crystal, and that creates currents, and that is called as piezoelectric effect by deformation of the hydroxyapatite crystal. So one movement can create currents. The second thing is that there is a junction between the collagen and the mineral. So if this is the mineral and this is the collagen in the bone, supposing there is micro movements, there will be more electrons here as compared to here. So this will become negative, this will become positive, and micro currents would be established. So this is called as the junctional diode. This is a diode theory at the mineral collagen interface. So electrical currents are normally responsible for initiation or of bone union, and these electrical currents can be augmented by external currents by either directly or by electromagnetic induction, and these have been known to enhance or increase rate of union. The two names that you have to remember as far as research on electrical current goes is Fukuda and Yasuda of Japan. So this in short is how do you deal with non-union and how do you deal with slow union or delayed union in case of fracture both bone of leg. So this in short finishes the fracture both bone of leg.